My name is Mauricio. I grew up a fan of Fleischer Cartoons. I didn't even know at the time they were Fleischer Cartoons. I don't know if you all grew up in the 90s. Back in the day, we had cassette tapes, and there would be like these 501 tapes, you know, Felix the Cat, Betty Boop, Popeye, random stuff. And, as I was growing up, I'm a child of Mexican immigrants. That was cheap entertainment, you get them for $1, $2, you get 500 cartoons in one tape. That's a great deal. But even through bad prints, because essentially all those cartoons were public domain, which means essentially there's no owner to them. Like if you screened a bunch of them, you could do it for free. You won't get in trouble. Warner Brothers won't go after you. So essentially these tapes were filled with public domain material, and all these public domain cartoons were just bad copies of copies of copies. So they would be really red and just really ugly. And essentially, as I've been growing up and I have a company now, I could do cool merchandise, I was thinking, where are these Fleischer cartoons? Recently, a rapper named Ghostmane used a video of Cab Calloway with Koko the Clown and dancing. It went viral. Kids were like tattooing Koko the Clown and the ghost. And I was like, okay, who is this clown and where can we get more? And then as I dove deeper, wait a minute, Koko the Clown is related to Betty Boop. That was the first character that the Fleischers did. And apparently, he's Betty's ex-boyfriend in some of the cartoons, which is really funny to see. And then you dive deeper and it's like, wait a minute, they did Popeye as well? They did those Superman cartoons? They did the bouncing ball? I mean, the Fleischers were pioneers. And when I say the Fleischers, I mean the Fleischer brothers. The main head was Max Fleischer, the guy who directed them all. And I say that because it's impossible for him to direct them all. Is Dave Fleischer, mostly animators would direct that. But it was a family organization based in New York. They invented the rotoscope, which is essentially tracing live footage and animating it. And I still see it today. I'm a big fan of Smiling Friends, and I still see it on there. They invented, like I said, the bouncing ball, which is essentially karaoke. They invented so many great stuff. And of course, Disney. Oh, I can go on and on about Disney. Disney was his biggest rival. He took a lot of his animators. He took basically, a lot of influence and a lot of stuff from the Fleischers. And today, of course, Disney's this big corporation. But I feel like the Fleischers need to be loved more. They need to be appreciated more. Sorry if I'm going on a rant, but I love this stuff, and I'm just so thrilled about what y'all are going to see. This is just amazing. We're restoring the cartoons. We're working with Paramount Pictures. We're working with the Fleischer family. We're working to get all of these restored in 4K. I do tours of this stuff. We actually have a big show on Sunday in Highland Park. Apparently it's sold out, which I'm just like thrilled about. And we get these in front of people to see these cartoons with a group of people laughing at the right parts, seeing that this stuff is still so funny, being amazed at the trippy, psychedelic animation that the Fleischers did. It makes my life whole. It makes this stuff just amazing, We got to just keep it going. I mean, I can go on and on. We'll do a Q&A after if you guys have questions. But essentially, the bulk of the show is going to be a mix of the Fleischer studio. So you're going to see a Popeye, you're going to see a Betty Boop. And to keep with the theme of Mexico, I did throw in Popeye where he goes to Mexico. So that's a really great one. But yes, I love this stuff. I can't thank you enough for being here. This is going to be just so much fun. But yeah, thank you so much. Have fun. Thank you.
During the first 10 years of the 20th century, the art of cartooning reached a new phase with the development of animation. And one of the most important developers was the great pioneer Max Fleischer. Fleischer's experiments led to the first realistic animation as early as 1915 with his invention of the rotoscope. His brother Dave was filmed in a clown costume, and the footage was painstakingly traced, frame by frame. In 1925, Fleischer produced the first animation with sound and introduced the world to the famous bouncing ball, which was an early version of karaoke and the music video. In the 1930s, Max Fleischer was a leading animation pioneer for Paramount with the first female cartoon star, Betty Boop, who embraced the jazz age with her guest stars, Louis Armstrong, Don Redman, and Cab Calloway. Fleischer's realization of Popeye the Sailor made him a box office champion who was more popular than Mickey Mouse. In the 1940s, Max Fleischer's Superman took animation to new heights with its breathtaking action and pulp fiction imagery, which continue to amaze and inspire audiences today. But Max Fleischer was much more than a cartoon producer. He was an artist, a writer, and an inventor with over 20 patents for animation and motion picture processes. Max Fleischer was truly a 20th century Renaissance man. Now, many are rediscovering the magic and delight of the Max Fleischer film legacy. Unfortunately, this legacy is in danger of disappearing, since many of these important films are 100 years old, with others approaching that point. Some are already considered lost forever. Our mission is to round up what survives and restore the Fleischer film legacy in modern digital form, so that the public will continue to enjoy the works of Max Fleischer, but most of all, so that current and future animators will be inspired and learn from these masterful works that all began with a pen and an inkwell.
Faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, able to leap tall buildings at a single bound, this amazing stranger from the planet Krypton, the Man of Steel, Superman. Empowered with X-ray vision, possessing remarkable physical strength, Superman fights a never-ending battle for truth and justice, disguised as a mild-mannered newspaper reporter, Clark Kent.
Lois, what are you doing here?
Oh, just getting the woman's angle on this story.
The mechanical monster! Look out!
Come on, you fool! Do you want to get trampled?
Now you wait here. I'll phone this in. Yes, I'll give you the details later, Chief. All right, Lois. Lois! This is a job for Superman.
What a story this is going to make.
The jewels. What have you done with the jewels?
You'll read about it in tomorrow's paper.
Are you going to tell me what happened to those jewels? So, you won't tell me. You'll soon change your mind. Superman! step and she's doomed.
That's a wonderful story, Lois.
Thanks, Clark, but I owe it all to Superman.
Children and you don't know what to do, just follow the advice of the woman in the shoe. Just use a little kindness and a lot of patience too, if you want to be as happy as the woman in the shoe. You didn't eat your broth and you didn't eat your bread, so go ahead and wash and hurry into bed. Shoo, 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 shoo. I won't allow any music in here. go to sleep and remember, no music around here.
My mama don't allow no music played in here. She don't allow no music in here. But when I care what she don't allow, I play my music anyhow. My mama don't allow no music in here. Now my mama don't allow no piano playing in here. She don't allow no piano playing in here. But when I care what she don't allow, I play my piano anyhow. No get fiddles in here, huh? But I don't care what she don't allow, I play my guitar anyhow. My mama don't allow no music in here. Mama don't allow no music in here. But what I care what she don't allow, I play my music anyhow. My mama don't allow no music in here. Now she don't allow no juice hops in here. Oh, God don't allow no juice hops in here. But when I care what she don't allow, just play my juice hop anyhow. Play it, Happy.
So you see that raising children isn't very hard to do if you only take it easy like the woman in the show.
So what did you think? And coming up on the stage is Ray Pointer. Ray Pointer wrote the book on the Fleischers, which, by the way, we do have merch out in the front. I'll go out in a bit once we're done with the Q&A. So, you know, got shirts of the Ghost and Koko, and I got a Ghost keychain and stuff like that. But yeah, there's literally hundreds and hundreds of cartoons like this. Paramount is the one that owns a lot of this stuff, and thankfully, through my persistence and just, you know, just love for this stuff, we've been able to get these cartoons out, and I'm working with the Fleischer family. Yes, the family's still around. The grandchildren own the characters, so if you get merchandise and all that stuff, it goes through the Fleischer family. But Jane Fleischer, who's Max Fleischer's granddaughter specifically, is the one who's been helping us, and she's just tremendous. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank her in front of you guys. But
and she was here yesterday.
Yeah, we had a panel on Thursday where we showed, more stuff, and to see people coming out and supporting this stuff, it really means a lot to us, because this is what's going to help us get more of this stuff out. And what I'm trying to do too is kind of put other cartoons to the Fleischer bandwagon. So I also want to say Felix the Cat, Mighty Mouse, Heckle and Jekyll. So there's a bunch of cartoons that just have been forgotten, because they're not owned by Warner Brothers or Disney, but are still so funny and still so awesome. And that last cartoon gives you kind of a taste of just how spooky and surreal and just so awesome these cartoons are. And every October we do a thing called Betty Boop's Halloween Party. We basically just show a bunch of those creepy, awesome cartoons. There's one where Betty goes to hell and all the devils mess with her and all that. But yeah, as you can see, that's why I love this stuff. And that scene where they were dancing, the rappers, they put their music over because all these cartoons were based off music. If you notice how they're always like bobbing up and down, that's because they were, based off of tracks. They had to go for the beat and the tempo. So if you mute that stuff and put, your own song on top of it, it fits so well, which is like really great to see. And that's kind of how this new generation is, getting into this stuff. Not sure if you noticed, I kind of put new music to the Koko stuff. That's kind of my way of trying to reintroduce.
No, you did that.
Yeah, that was an original. They weren't into techno or electro back in the 30s. But yes, Ray Pointer knows everything, anything about the Fleischers. He worked at Nickelodeon. He worked on Cat Dog. He worked on Bebe's Kids. He worked on the Tom and Jerry movie where Tom talked. It's one of my personal favorites. I don't know. I
didn't do any of those scenes though.
Yeah, but Ray knows everything, anything about the Fleischers, Popeye, Superman. The stuff you just saw. So if y'all have any questions, feel free, raise your hand and ask me, ask Ray. And we have
Before
a mic
we
here.
have any questions, I have a little caveat to your opening.
Sure.
You told what got your interest. Well, I think I've got you beat because I first saw these 67 years ago when they were first on television. So I think I was kind of at the head of the line. But just like Mauricio, I was immediately taken in by the magic of all these, primarily the Out of the Inkwells. And the only example of those that you saw here was Koko's Earth Control, which was the later series. But Out of the Inkwell was Max Fleischer's initial success, his primary series that they did essentially for 10 years. It started in 1918, and they did it independently until 27 when they secured a contract with Paramount, and that was from 27 to 29. And so because of the good graces of Paramount preserving their negatives, we have the easiest access to the best source materials because they have those negatives. The challenge has been anything before 1927 and after 1941, because the only things that seem to exist at this point are surviving prints. And to find anything in 35 millimeter from 100 years ago is quite a find, and I think we've had 5. But when you saw in the intro, there was an example of what happens when film deteriorates, and that's the state of it, because film is a fragile medium. But we're very lucky that with the vast library that there is, that we're getting something of this quality. And you're seeing just the tip of the iceberg. I think we have 90 films restored so far, is that right?
Yeah, and we are planning to make a Blu-ray. And the thing that I'm really thrilled about, there's never been an official Blu-ray with like a mix of this stuff, with Popeye, Superman. So fingers crossed, we're going to be that first company to release a mix of all the official characters. And the cool thing about it too, because Popeye's owned by King Features, they've been super cool about this too, supportive and wanting to see us succeed with this. So yeah, that's been really awesome. And hopefully, yeah, you guys will own it. You guys can play it at a party and put it in the background. Because what I do too is I go to goth clubs and we project them on the screen. So, you hear The Cure, Depeche Mode, or, whatever, and Betty's dancing and Coco's, hanging out. It's like the coolest thing. So, yeah, it's really awesome.
So much for the monologue. How about questions? Yes?
Where are those 19 films accessible right now?
They're in the Paramount vault. The ones that you've seen here.
Oh, and recently we managed to connect with Martin Scorsese and Seth MacFarlane, the creator of Family Guy. So this just shows you like how influential these cartoons are. We even did a show with Matt Groening, creator of The Simpsons. Oh, I'm thrilled about this. Do you guys know who Tom Kenny is? The voice of SpongeBob? So he's a massive fan of Popeye, and he's got his own band called Tom Kenny and the High Seas, and they perform, rock and roll music. But because he's such a fan, we did 2 shows last year where we performed the music of Fleischer. So we played Popeye track, a Betty Boop track, and he has his 3 singer girls, and they all sing like Betty Boop, and he sings like Popeye. It's the coolest thing because he also has a saxophone player, trumpet player. So they're playing the actual music from the cartoons. fingers crossed. I really want to bring this to San Diego. That would be awesome because to experience the cartoons and then to have like Tom Kenny like talk like Popeye and Bluto, it's the trippiest thing. It's the coolest thing. So hopefully we can bring that. But that's kind of the level of influence that these cartoons have. I mean, Cuphead. I mean, I don't know if anyone who works at Cuphead, but it feels like they've essentially, lifted that style, Bendy and all this sort of stuff.
They've resurrected it.
Resurrected, yes. Ray likes to say that, but yeah, I think this stuff's great. And
Another question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a question about the Popeye cartoon. Do you know if these in special have some reference with the old Tijuana? Because how do you know? I don't know if maybe in the old script have some reference about Tijuana, because a lot of Marines from San Diego go to drunk to Tijuana and make.
I know all about that. I was stationed here for 3 years when I was in the Navy.
Oh well, okay. But do you know if you have some connection about this on the script?
Yeah, I have a little bit of an insight. As a matter of fact, there's something interesting and significant about Blow Me Down because the Popeye series started by accident. And I've got to keep that short, of course, but neither Paramount nor King Features had any faith in Popeye having any screen presence, and Max Fleischer did. So he snuck him into a Betty Boop cartoon. It was primarily titled Popeye the Sailor. And the reaction was so tremendous that Paramount immediately said, you've got to put this in a series. So Blow Me Down, where he goes to Mexico, was the first official Popeye released cartoon. But that was based really on a lot of just generic, maybe stereotypical concepts of Mexico or something like that based on magazine articles or National Geographic or something like that. But all imaginary. I don't think it was accurate, but just a fantasy concept.
And by the way, since it's Comic-Con related, I don't know if you guys aren't going to Comic-Con, this is giving you cred because we saw Superman, so that counts, right? He's a superhero. And with Popeye, Max Fleischer was the one who said, hey, this would be an awesome character. They're the ones who kind of added the spinach, the theme song. And with Superman specifically, Max Fleischer's the one who added the flight to Superman. Because usually in the comics, Superman would jump, back and forth, jump really high. And I think they did that once and it looked really silly.
Yeah, there was an interesting story about that because actually in the original comic books, he could take large steps and cover several blocks at the same time. It was almost like he was skipping along or something like that. And actually, just before that, when Captain Marvel came out, Captain Marvel actually stretched his body out forward and flew. Now, I don't know whether Max was aware of that at the time because there was an overlap between when that came out and when the cartoon was in development. It was actually in development in 1940 before Captain Marvel came out as a live-action serial. However, they tried some test animation with Superman skipping, and it looked silly. And not only that, it was a bit more complicated to animate with the skipping and the cape flapping and all that sort of thing. And so Max said, why don't you just compress his body into the shape of a bullet? And it made a much more dramatic image with his face going forward and nothing in front of it covering it. And it was much simpler to animate and much more dramatic.
Another question?
I remember in Guadalajara, Mexico, saw that short films about this, Betty Boop and George Pal animation, everything in English, all the time in English because they don't dub it. So I saw Popeye, and this was original a comic strip, and then the Max brothers made a Henry with Betty Boop, and I thought that I think the Little King also.
They did the Little King also.
Yeah.
And Little Jimmy. There were 3 other King Features strips that they tried in one-shots with Betty Boop. I think they were looking for another success like Popeye, but they never made any more after that.
That's a shame because they were like visionaries, and they took the original work with the comic strip, was my main thing, and I said, if they develop that same movements, I think we lost sometimes Disney, like you said, they lost all the drive that maintained the comic strips alive in a animation. That was great.
Well, you know, something that's interesting, and I think that you'd appreciate this too, is the fact that in both cases of the use of Popeye and Superman, the Fleischer Studios actually enhanced those characters beyond what they originally were, like the flying for Superman, the spinach gag, because when you do a series, you have to have a commonality that, or a common gimmick or something that's common in it that makes it worthy of being a series so that people want to come back and see how are they going to get out of the situation this time. Also, the trilogy of Popeye, Bluto, and Olive Oil, that was also Max's idea too. You had to have these three characters to have some sort of a conflict. And that way you have all sorts of stories that you can develop with between these three characters. So that was another enhancement. And also the design of the characters were improved when they were adapted to animation.
And at the time, the Popeye cartoons beat Mickey Mouse at the box office. So it's crazy to think that, you know, at a time, the Fleischers, you know, the cartoons were beating, you know, Mickey, and now it's kind of the opposite. Like, feel like nobody's paying attention to Popeye, or you know, and I'm trying to get Popeye in like these video games now. There's like all these like mashup games, and there's actually a new TV channel called Me TV Tunes. It's a free over-the-air channel. You got to check your local listings. I'm from LA, so I don't know the exact number here, but essentially you could watch cartoons for free. I know they play Betty Boop, they play Pink Panther. They just added like Rocky and Bullwinkle. So if you guys love this stuff, just come out, support it. You know, like I said, we do these shows. We want to do more of this stuff. There's plenty of stuff to show, a bunch of different themes, fairy tales, Halloween, you know, a bunch of great stuff.
And don't forget, they've shown some of our restorations too.
Oh, yeah. If there's no more questions, we're going to go to the merch booth and show you our stuff. But yeah, I really can't thank you enough. Hopefully we can come back and show some more great stuff and really get more in depth with this. But yeah, I can't thank you enough.
And anybody has any more questions, I'll be out at the table, because as the old hymn goes, I love to tell the story.
Thank you so much. Thank you.